I decided to do my presentation on dual coding theory because it seems to go more in hand with the special education background that I do have. This theory was introduced in the mid-1960s by Alvin Pavio. He intended it to explain the correlation between memory and imagery, which is something that has been researched multiple times, and it's used with Alzheimer's patients, dementia patients, with little children even, trying to help them learn the words that correspond with pictures and helping recall memory. According to Sadowski, it is the first systematic scientific attempt to bridge the imagery tradition and the verbal tradition. Sadowski has done a lot of research with Pavio. They've co-written multiple articles and books regarding the dual coding theory. And it's one that has its history very far back, approximately 2,500 years ago, according to Gates. And they're trying to combine words, sentences, with pictures to help people remember items even better. It's one of the reasons that when people are learning memory tricks, if they struggle to remember stuff, putting pictures in a story in your mind, so thinking up a story to go with your grocery list, for example. The theory has evolved as time has passed and images were presented in the forms of pictures. So as things have progressed, as technology has progressed from simple drawings to more complex drawings to actual photographs, the theory has evolved with that growth in technology. And the theory further evolved during the Renaissance, when reading for the masses was becoming popular, becoming essential for people, for essentially the everyday person, not the nobility or the gentry, to know how to read and write. So they would show pictures of what a house would be and show the word along with it, which is something we still do today. There were several main players leading up to Pavio's formal formation of the theory. The first one is Giordano Bruno, who was a 16th century scholar. He wanted to link the earthly knowledge, the reading and writing, the math that there was, to his knowledge of astrology, help him learn the stars and learn how to be able to identify the various constellations. He wanted to be able to link the reading and writing to that learning. And then in the 17th century, you have Campanella, who wrote a story about utopia, about the perfect society, but he used pictures only for the educational purposes. So in his story, the students were learning reading and writing based on the pictures, the images. And then finally you have Comenius, who developed Campanella's book system into something more modern, more concrete. He developed it by using both the words and the pictures, so instead of just pictures, he was the first one to actually combine the two, the verbal and the nonverbal. His book is still considered the mother of all children's picture textbooks. It's very similar to what we use today with board books for children. We make sure that we give children board books when they're toddlers. It gives them the word and the picture, and it helps them to make a connection between the two, even though they don't technically are able to read what the word is. They can tell what the word is based on the picture that corresponds with it. There are multiple basic principles, but they really all boil down to a couple of things, a couple of basic tenets. The picture superiority effect, which is one of the principles of dual coding theory. according to England, Towers, and Levy. It's that memory for pictures is usually better than for words. So if people can see a list of pictures and then have to recall it, it's going to be better. The recall is going to be better than if they were just given the actual words. It's based on the idea of using imagery to help aid memory. This is something that is being researched by doctors that have patients with Alzheimer's or dementia. Show them the picture and try to help them remember things about that individual based on showing them the picture. For learning to be successful, you need to incorporate both words and pictures. This goes back to the picture books for children that have the words and the picture. So for example, if they saw a fire engine or a fire truck, they would see the word below the picture. And it's going to help them remember it even better. Cognition involves the activity of two functionally independent but interconnected multimodal systems. Pavio stated in his research that you have two parts to your brain, one that involves the verbal, the other that involves the nonverbal. So you have two different systems that work to help you with knowledge, understanding, comprehension. But those two parts are actually separated, but they can work together, which is where the words along with the picture comes into play. It does emphasize both the verbal and nonverbal. So the verbal is basically the words, the sentences, what's written down on paper, and nonverbal is everything else, the body language, the emotions, the feelings that go along with a picture. And what is accepted by most researchers in memory is that our memory is able to change. So when we're learning something at first, so you're learning how to do addition. You put the information in your short-term memory and try to get it into your long-term memory. Or the multiplication facts when you're in school and you're made to remember the multiplication facts. They're placed into your short-term memory at first, and then eventually it will go to your long-term memory. But then if you learn a new skill to go with it, you're going to pull it out of your long-term memory. You're going to change it, manipulate it, and then it's going to go back into storage. The same thing with the dual coding theory. The verbal and nonverbal structures can change over time based on experiences, based on knowledge that you have gained. And what I think is important, especially with students that have special needs, is you need to induce or activate all of the senses, or as many senses as possible. Sadowski states that exact point, that different verbal and nonverbal experiences can occur in different sense modalities. There's quite a few board books out there for children that have the word, the picture, in some type of texture, some type of item you can touch to help learn more about it. For example, if the picture is of a sheep, it says the word sheep, as a picture of a sheep, and then you'll be able to touch wool or something similar so that you can get the feel of a sheep. And so that's incorporating as many different senses as possible. If you're trying to teach somebody what the letters for a cookie are, maybe you would have the word, the picture, physical chocolate chip cookies that they can smell and taste and touch. That's incorporating as many senses as possible. It also takes into account the different experiences and backgrounds that people come from. The words that we have in the States may not be the same words that are used in India or Japan or even England for that matter. So the dual coding theory takes into account all of the different cultures because you're still pairing the word with the picture. So maybe in Japan, instead of a picture of a house that we would have in the United States, maybe they would have a pagoda or something to signify their culture. And this will affect, the dual coding theory affects all aspects of literacy. For some students, it's easier to have the pictures along with the words to help them learn how to read. So it's sometimes easier for those with reading comprehension disabilities or dyslexia or some type of learning impairment to use the pictures instead of the words. But if you pair them together, it's going to help increase the comprehension. I found this structure time and time again in the research. According to Pavio, this picture shows the pathways that connect the two systems, the verbal and the nonverbal, and how things might be processed. So for example, it shows you have the word phone, you have the picture of the phone. When the phone rings, you have the picture of music. So that gives you both aspects of it. Unfortunately, I was only able to find a couple of significant researchers in this field. As previously mentioned, Pavio developed the dual coding theory, but he also wrote many articles and books with various co-authors. And Mark Sadowski is one of those co-authors that he did a lot of work with. But besides working with Pavio, Sadowski also worked with other researchers to try to develop the theory based on his background of being a reading educator, a literacy educator. So he's tried to do a lot of linking the dual coding theory to how to increase comprehension in students. And then I found this video on YouTube, which has a standard license. And so it is a great video that explains the theory of dual coding theory in a quick minute and a half explanation.
Illustration and e-learning, dual coding theory. Dual coding theory is based on the idea that two pieces of information are better than one when it comes to learning. To put this into practice, we need a verbal code and a visual code. Firstly, we'll show our learner the words dog, car, and fish. The verbal code writes these words to the memory. Next, we'll show our learner some visuals that correspond to the words they've just learned. These visuals are also digested and written to the memory. The result is that our learner has been given two opportunities to learn the information, making them twice as likely to remember what they've been taught.
So as you can see, it's just a quick, short explanation of the dual coding theory. And thank you for watching, and I hope that you learned information from it.